Hello, heretics and heathens. This is Lilith. I'm here with Renee, and we are Veritas Voices. Thank you for joining us today as we start Batshit Believers, the new crazy Christian tweets with, you know, frankly, other religions too, because let's face it, Christianity may be crazy, but it doesn't have a monopoly, at least not on that.
And we needed a new name, and Crazy Christian Tweets featuring Muslim madness and other religious views. It was bound to get a bit confusing.
Yes. Well, thank you for everyone who voted. You were pretty clear in where you came down on the poll. We very much appreciate that. So, Tweets from Batshit Believers is what you voted for, and you got it. We live to serve.
Yeah.
And I must say thank you, Renee, for finding such an excellent collection of Batshit Believer tweets to start us off.
Yeah.
There are just some very interesting ones this month.
Yeah. Should I start us off?
Oh, please do.
Okay. Let's not waste any time. This is the first tweet is from a guy named Ronaldo White at Fed Up Christian, is his handle on Twitter. And he had this to say: if you don't believe in Jesus, you will burn in hell, and us Christians in heaven will point and laugh. Hashtag Muslims, hashtag Jews, hashtag atheist, hashtag God. Yeah.
What a charming fellow.
Yeah.
You know, some people have thought that this was maybe a troll account or what have you. But the really disturbing thing is that it's not exactly unique in theology. There have been church fathers who said that one of the pleasures in heaven, in between the everlasting praising of God, presumably there are shift rotations, just for variety's sake, is to go peek over the edge and enjoy the tortures of the damned and contemplate God's justice in eternally torturing a lot of creatures he created and put
Yeah.
in a no-win situation.
Like one thing which I also have often said in relation to another topic, which is something that some Christians claim that if you go to heaven but your family members don't go to heaven, they end up in hell, then your memory of them will be erased, and you as a person will not remember them. And one thing which I've often said frequently is if uh, if this entity in heaven doesn't remember his family members because they're in hell, then this entity can no longer be me. It's a different person from me who may look like me, but a person for whom I have nothing but disgust. And I think the same would also apply here. Like, if
Yeah.
I am in heaven and if I get off on the torturing of other people, then that won't be me that is in heaven.
Well, it's one of those questions, will you remember your family and the love you had for your family? Oh, of course, love for family is a good thing, so that goes to heaven. Will you be fine with, maybe not enjoy, but just be totally fine with watching them be tortured? Well, God will make it so it's okay. Well, you would be fine with that now? No, of course not. So basically, you're going to be a worse person in heaven than you are now on earth.
And
Also,
def-
apparently the hell with free will.
yeah, you will sort of be brainwashed in heaven into being a person that you're not.
Well, what parts do they cut out? Or what free will my ass.
Yeah.
Apparently, I maybe that's what you have to do here is make yourself into the type of person who's totally fine with torture as long as God does it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what a lot of Christians are trying to get themselves into because that's good, apparently.
One thing which I also said to Ronaldo, or I don't know if you read it, I quote tweeted him on Twitter. One thing which I said is, if me believing in Jesus and if me being a Christian entails that I laugh at the suffering of others, then why in the world would I want to be a Christian?
Yeah. Well, and true. True. And, to observe eternal torture and somehow consider that just, not only would that require the removal of all of my morality, it would require the removal of a good bit of my intelligence, because I know what justice is, and that ain't it.
Yeah, it would definitely also conflict with the human concept of justice as a whole, and that either lands us with uh, our standard of our standards of justice don't apply, and we simply cannot tell what justice is, therefore we cannot judge God,
Yeah,
or
bullshit. We know plenty of just and benevolent creatures. They're called humans.
yeah,
We've observed them for a long time, and they don't
if
do that shit.
justice applies, then God is not just.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah, apparently God acting like all the worst dictators in history is somehow really good on a cosmic scale. We're just not clever enough to see it.
yeah,
Right.
theocracy is okay when God does it.
Ugh. The totalitarian is the enemy, and that means God too. Though I have to say, this next one, I was wondering if this person is a Muslim or a Christian. I don't know. Zendruis. Druis. Zendris. I don't know. But it's a pretty standard creationist argument, except delivered very poorly and very stupidly. Let's just read the tweet. It's you that believes dirt became humans. Science books teach it rained on the rock for millions of years on the ground and created a magical soup that Pokemon evolved into hummingbirds and humans and chimps and bacteria. Ribs carry genetic information, dead soup does not. Owned.
Yeah,
Now,
he
it's pretty.
definitely did own somebody, but
I mean, he sounds just like he's quoting Canthoven. It
yeah,
rained on the rocks for millions of years. No, dumbass, that's not how you got life. Although that certainly did, I'm sure, create some absorbed chemicals that helped with the whole protein DNA thing. But just no,
I
rain doesn't make things alive.
I do think that it did rain on Earth for millions of years. I think I saw something along the lines in a
And it
YouTube
still
video
wasn't a global flood.
about the history of Earth. Like I did see something to that effect, but that did not cause life. What it
Mm.
did cause life is we don't know the exact details, but it's pretty much established that it was abiogenesis. But
Yeah, well, abiogenesis is obviously abiogenesis occurred. There was the beginnings of life. It's a matter of figuring out how it happened. And that's not a one stage process. They want it to be a really simple answer so they can poke holes in it. And I'm like, nah, reality isn't like that. The Pokemon evolved thing, it's telling that he actually uses this because a lot of creationists basically think that evolution is like Pokemon because, creationism doesn't have any evidence or reasonable backing. They just have to produce a false dichotomy and then convince you of a version of evolution that is more stupid than 6 day creationism,
yeah,
which is just 6 day creationism happening over a million years.
and that's also I want to say two things about that. One thing which I want to say is basically what they demand when they ask for a change in kinds is basically evidence for Pokemon. Like they want
Oh, yeah.
bacteria to turn into a human or something along those lines. And so,
Yeah,
so
they want magic because that's their explanation. So they have to
yeah,
project it on us. But I have to say, the final line here, ribs carry genetic information. It's pretty clear that's a reference to Adam and Eve and the rib and blah, blah, blah. Probably a Christian then. But I have to say, in the story where Eve was made out of Adam's rib, it's true. There is genetic information in there, male genetic information. It
oh shit,
so Eve would be a clone, which means
Adam was
Eve
gay.
would or possibly Eve was trans. You know,
Oh,
maybe God performed the first gender affirming surgery.
well, that's probably not something that people like Ken Ham or that person.
Hey, it's right there in the beginning. In the beginning, God supported trans rights.
Yeah.
Uh, so there you go. There you go. Eve was genetically male, apparently, but
Well,
God affirmed her gender identity. Kudos on that one.
one thing
And
which one
there you go.
final I wanted to say on on the Pokemon involved stuff. There's actually a video on YouTube. I think I've given it to you in the past, which is called "The Creation Museum Teaches Super Evolution," and they're basically they creationism itself after Noah's flood requires evolution, except that it requires evolution on a speed 100 times faster than actual evolution. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they need super evolution, and then they just blather about kinds and genetic limits to try and pretend that it's not evolution. Um, it's kind of stupid. And they
yeah,
need to pretend that all the original genetic information was there. It was just being pared down in different directions rather than mutations occurring, because then they can still pretend it's sort of not evolution.
yeah.
Yeah, what can I say? Christianity, especially creationism, is incredibly full of shit. Ugh. I have
I'm
to
with.
say, sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to move on to the next tweet, but you go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, actually, you found a couple of interesting Muslim ones in the last few weeks.
Yeah,
I this you know what? Take it away. Your
yeah.
tweet.
This one is from a guy named, I hope I pronounce this correct, Azadullah Ali at Project Andalus. I think that's probably roughly right. He said the following, and he quotes ex-Muslims of North America from their tweet: "Stars and galaxies are more important than human life." Ex-Muslim, so that's his quote. When you post arguments like this, it's not difficult to comprehend why anti-religious atheists occupy the top of the genocidal maniac list. Just saying.
Ugh. You
First of all,
know,
I would like to
yeah.
see that list that he's talking about. I suspect it's the atheist atrocities fallacy, but he's also
Oh
quite
yeah.
equivocating here because what people mean when they say galaxies and stars are more important than human life within this universe, they mean is that stars and galaxies take up more place within the universe, and the universe contains more of stars and galaxies. They make up more percent of the universe. Not that
Well,
we place
he
on.
literally quotes the original tweet by ex-Muslims of North America that says hundreds of billions of galaxies, billions of trillions of stars on a magnitude beyond imagination. Nowhere here does it talk about comparative importance.
Yeah.
This is wonder at the scale of the cosmos, which, yeah, I mean, come on. It's awesome. Uh,
I would say
The
one
death,
can interpret it to mean, or to one can interpret it to think that stars and galaxies are more important, but it wouldn't be more important in a value judgment of what has more value uh, as a whole.
well, he's
Is
just lying and he's desperately projecting his need onto this ex-Muslim to try and make it as though this ex-Muslim is evil. I mean, if
anti-value.
he had not quoted the tweet, he literally shows that he's lying in the tweet he quotes. He
Yeah,
demonstrates, we see that he's lying. If you're apparently you can't experience wonder about things that are much, much bigger than you and greater on both size and time scales without thinking that they are more important and somehow devaluing human life. I mean, where did they get this shit?
well, what many theists and I think Muslims and Christians especially think is that if there's no God, then humans have no value, and if humans have no value, then everything goes.
Yeah, I've heard that shit before. If there is a God, humans have no value.
Yeah,
That's the real circumstance because let's face it, we exist and we care about each other. We have value to each other. Value is the property of a mind.
and
If
it's
God exists, then our love doesn't matter, except it's only Him that matters and what He arbitrarily dictates our purpose and meaning to be.
yeah,
And that is the value of a robot and a slave.
yeah.
Total self-objection. No interest in that.
One thing which I did say in the past that um, people think, or theists think that us being apes or us being animals makes us less valuable. But to be honest, I think an ape is more valuable than a clone of a genocidal being. Like if we did come from God, then I would value humans less than I value them now,
Mm-hmm.
because I would consider them reflections of a monster.
Besides the fact that in it's completely reasonable in that point to say that it doesn't matter if we kill someone, they're immortal. They'll just, God will sort them out.
And that's
Kill
also,
them all and God will sort them out is something that
yeah,
both Muslim and Christian genocidal monsters have said,
that,
literally said.
that's also something that a Christian apologist once said on Twitter, is that God didn't kill these people, he transferred them to a different location. But if I were to say that for Hitler or Stalin, then of course that won't go, but it's okay when God does it.
God can suck a dick. Not to
Do you
put too
want
fine a point.
to go on to the next?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This next tweet I think I'm going to move on to because it actually follows quite nicely from where we're going. Is from Paul Worcester, but it's a quote from Hudson Taylor. God wants you to have something far better than riches and gold, and that is helpless dependence on Him. Not just dependence, helpless dependence.
Yeah,
God wants you to be absolutely helpless in your dependence on Him.
yes. And he wants you to be a child, he wants you to need him because he's a narcissist.
Well, now tell me something. What do we think of parents who want not to increase their children's independence, but to decrease it and make their children more and more dependent on them? Hmm?
But I would think of them as people who want the attention of their children, who cannot let go of their children, and who, in order to self satisfy them, cripple the skills of their children and their abilities and that stuff.
Just a reminder to Christians, this is a bad thing. Bad. Crippling your children's development so that you can keep them dependent is bad.
And a deep
Remember that.
sense of survival as
Ugh.
well.
It's true, though. Christianity is eminently infantilizing. And it's proud of it, honestly, most of the time. Unless you become like little children, you will in no wise enter the kingdom of heaven.
Or you should have the faith of children, or you should trust God. Trust God as a child would trust his father. I think I read that recently within the Bible because I'm currently reading it, and yeah,
My condolences. Well, and it's not just trust God like a child. There are all sorts of things to undermine any belief you have in your own ability or intelligence. All your righteousness is as filthy rags, but there's also an idolization of folly. Because if the world points out that you're saying, doing, or believing something foolish, then you can say, well, God deliberately made our ways foolish to the worldly wise so that they would become fools because he likes using the foolish, simple things.
Yeah,
So if you are simple and foolish, this isn't something you should try to overcome by educating yourself and growing the hell up. No, this is something you should cultivate because then you are closer to what God wants to use.
yeah. Think it also says something along those lines in the Bible. For the cross is foolishness to the world, but to
That's
believe.
exactly where I got it from. Yeah.
Oh,
Uh, yep. And it's said several times, you
Proverbs
know.
3:5. Lean not on your own understanding, but trust God with all your heart. Actually, it's reversed, but yeah.
Yeah. There are many such verses, and I'm sure everyone is perfectly capable of looking them up. Please do not do so without an oven glove. Face palming injuries are nothing to scoff at. This has been your daily public service announcement. And with that, I think we should go back to Islam and their delightful laws. This actually is two tweets. It came from a conversation you were commenting on and involved in at the time. Could you give us a little background?
Yeah, so there was an initial tweet by Farid OV. That's his name. He's basically saying, I will just read it. Nobody's apostasy should affect you. If 99% of Muslims left the deen, it shouldn't affect you. Isn't true because of its rate of growth. It isn't true because of celebrity converts either. Islam is true because the evidence points to it. And in general, I would actually agree with that, except that Islam is not true. But I would agree with the message that arguments from popularity don't count. Celebrities who adhere to adhere to your position don't count. What counts is where the evidence points to, and the evidence determines what is true, and the evidence doesn't point towards Islam. But
Yes, but at least he's acknowledging that that is the important point. And I think that's very noble and it's very right thinking to say the evidence is what matters, the evidence is what is important. We need to focus on that and make it the subject of, the claims of truth for Islam. But then Abdullah Samir goes, if that's the case, why is there an apostasy law in Islam? And this is something I've seen from Muslim clerics, even when asked about things like child marriage. And I've seen it from Christians too. If this is bad, then why is it in the Quran or why is it in the Hadith? Or did the Prophet say it was okay? Because if it's still an authority claim. If it's in the Quran, if it's in the Hadith, if the Prophet said it's okay, then it's okay. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the consequences are. It doesn't matter anything. It's in here, so it's fine. And
yeah,
yeah. But then another fellow responded and I think said the quiet part out loud in terms of what Muslims think of apostasy.
yeah. The response was from a guy named Suleiman. I hope I said that correctly. He said, as an answer to Abdullah's question, because fitna is worse than murder, apostates make fitna by guiding people away from Islam, which in turn ruins their hereafter and their chance to go to heaven. And for the context, fitna are times of trial where people lose the faith and where people no longer trust in Allah. And he said that,
Basically, apostasy.
yeah,
Yeah.
the times of apostasy, like a general period of time within history where there will be many apostates.
And this is very, very, very interesting because in this context, he seems to be saying fitna as in the action of a single person. So in his mind, walking away from Islam is worse than murder.
Yeah,
Is that not a little disturbing? Because
definitely is.
I guarantee he actually thinks this.
Yeah,
And if you believe in eternal damnation and torturous hell, it's not an irrational perspective. And this is what leads to blasphemy laws and people being slaughtered because they can't buy bullshit anymore, and atheists having to lie and live lies every minute of every day, no matter how soul destroying, just to
yeah,
keep from their own families killing them
yeah.
because they can't believe in Islam anymore.
Like one thing which I was also thinking when he brought this up, what apostates, basically, when you become an apostate, you basically ruin your afterlife and you will go to hell and that sort of
Mm.
stuff. But murdering people will it is guaranteed for it or guarantees for them to go to hell, right? I mean, you want to prevent people from going to hell by killing people and thereby sending them to hell, which is not very rational.
Well, the idea is, and this is a horrific analogy, but this is the way that this kind of thinking works. That the idea is that the fitna is like a corruption, and this person has damned themselves, and you need to kill them quickly before they damn anyone else. By, because apparently their mere existence in leaving Islam will inspire other people to leave Islam, which, have to say, if that's the case, maybe there's a fucking reason.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I also want to, like, I don't think it would be rational for him as a Muslim to try to get rid of non belief or try to get rid of unbelief and get people to realize and to adhere to his Muslim religion. I also want to get rid of theism. I also want to get rid of religious beliefs because I think they're unreasonable. The difference is I don't want to get rid of cancer by killing cancer patients. I want to get rid of cancer by finding cures. And the cure is real.
Yeah, murdering people is not the appropriate response to a intellectual disagreement.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to say this anymore. We really, really shouldn't. We don't live in the Middle Ages. We shouldn't have to say this. Apparently, we still do.
Yeah. Like some
On
parts
that
of
delightful point, I'm going to move on before I start hitting things to Eve Keenan. Oh, great. Now I'm going to have to
that,
hit
that,
things
that,
more.
that's going to stop you from hitting things, I'm sure.
Oh, fucking hell. To those who don't know, consider yourselves lucky. Eve Keenan is someone who considers herself an expert in philosophy, um, and is basically a full of shit Christian apologist, a bully. Um, she is apparently quoting something someone else said, not a quote tweet, an actual quote. You can only ever take pride in your accomplishments and nothing else, certainly not your people or your heritage or anything else. Her question is then, who told you that? And will they be true enough to their principle to publicly denounce gay pride?
Well, I would say that gay pride is also something that you can be proud of because it is an accomplishment to stand up for yourself and to be proud of yourself and to announce to the world, yes, I'm gay and I'm not ashamed of it and I will show it and I will own who I am.
The funny thing is, if it wasn't for people like this, we wouldn't need gay pride because no one would give a fuck if you were gay. You'd be like, I'm gay. And they're like, shit, okay, I'm going to have to change my plans for who I'm setting you up on a blind date with. You could have told me earlier. That's it. That would be the only response. But people want to bully and harass and invalidate the identities and experiences of the LGBT or GRSM community. And it's fucking ridiculous. Like, You're the ones causing the problems. They're not proud that they exist. They're proud that they've had the courage to fight their way out of the closet you've been trying to jam them in since the day they were born. I'm going to do some deep breathing exercises. I'm Renee, it's not helping.
Well, maybe the next tweet.
Oh,
Or
this stupid hurts.
I am. I will just read it out loud, and you get your oven glove ready. And yeah, the next one is from Kenneth Sanders or Kenny Sanders. He said,
Oh.
"Yeah, I know. I haven't masturbated in 13 years. Jesus Christ delivered me. Anyhow, I will respect what you said and leave. Just know you have willingly become enemies with God and influenced others to do the same. Still, there will be mercy to you if you humble yourself and repent. Well, thanks, Jesus, for saving me from having orgasms. That's certainly all of us appreciate.
Renee,
Yes.
Renee, why is the stupid so stupid? It hurts. It hurts.
Oh,
Ugh. And for those who never grew up evangelical, and yes, this tends to be a problem with the more conservative, the worse. Tends to be a problem with Catholics, not so much with like sort of vaguely Episcopal groups. Um, they actually think that masturbation is a sin, that lustful thoughts are a sin.
well,
Basically,
I I do think this actually has biblical precedence that masturbation is a sin. I could be wrong this, but I
no, it doesn't have biblical precedence, although there is biblical precedence that lustful thoughts are a sin, and I'm not sure how you're supposed to get off without lustful thoughts, but that can be more a focus on like specific people would be bad to focus on because you would be lusting after them. So I don't know. There are ways you can think your way around it, but actually touching yourself, there's
yeah.
nothing said in the Bible about it.
Well, it's at the very least one could maybe think of it as adultery with your hand, and within your thoughts you are cheating on your wife and that sort of stuff. Because yeah,
Well, we all know that what women really want when they get married is a boy who has no idea how his body works, comes at the instant breath of a soft wind and freaks out the minute he has a sexual thought. I mean, really, that's the best way to have a fulfilling adult marriage, don't you think?
obviously, I mean somebody who has no idea about sexuality, who never had an orgasm, who yeah, the woman's dream, and
Yeah.
basically somebody who does masturbate at all, who is pretty much one of the worst prudes ever, and who I think one expression which I have read in the past within certain sites which I have visited, what they would refer to that would be a two pump chump. That
Yeah, pretty much. So, what was it? The line from the Lonely Island song, I Just Had Sex. The best 30 seconds of my life. Or at least it would be for him. For her, it would just be confusing and annoying and very disappointing. But hey, that's the joy of Christian intimacy with virgins flailing their unkempt genitals at each other with hopeless ignorance and desperation. Yay!
And I mean, after all, within a Christian worldview, sex or yeah, pretty much any sexual activities are purely for procreation. So it doesn't really matter if you enjoy it or if she enjoys it, as long as you get a baby out of it. And obviously, abortion is an absolute no go for that reason.
Yeah, obviously, I exist only to pump out units for the fucking so they can be indoctrinated into soul dead conformist Christian conservatives and maybe
Yeah,
thrown into war. Ugh.
keep
Well, honest,
them the
sorry.
way. I will never depart from it.
Hmm. Um, well, if Jesus Christ has delivered you from masturbation, I'm here to tell you it's okay. You can escape. You can run away from the Jesus and have the funds. It's okay.
One thing which I am set within the past concerning a parody article where it was posted by one of our viewers, Dave, posted an article about a gay teenager who is afraid that he might be a Christian. And
Oh my gosh. Okay, we have to include that in the links below because that sounds freaking hilarious.
what I said to that is that the teenager should just gay the J away. That's
Hey, if it was I'm not the least gay, but if it was between making out with a woman or becoming a Christian again, show me the titties. I'm just saying.
yeah,
Way better option. But I am going to insist we move on to our last final one, which actually isn't a tweet. It appears to be a Facebook post and response um, from Lori Alexander, also known as the Transformed Wife. It is possible her Facebook has been shut down. I need to take a look at that. She was certainly on probation, what with all the rape apologetics and such. If you don't know about the Transformed Wife, Mr. Atheist has some information on her. Rachel Oates is a great one to watch. They've both done responses to her work and just several others as well. It's awful. It's awful. All of the worst, most extreme religious conservative parody views you could ever imagine. Entirely serious from a middle-aged woman. It's just the worst. It's the worst. It's worse. I don't even know what to tell you. It's worse than Paul and Morgan. It's worse than it's just terrible. It's like Pat Robertson levels of terrible.
yeah, and that is saying something.
It actually, some of her advice is worse than Pat Robertson's advice. That's how bad it is. Okay. So, Cheryl, presumably a good Christian wife, asks advice of the transformed wife and says, my husband is a union member and refuses to vote for any Democrats. He has commanded me to vote for Biden in the primary, and I am certain he will not permit me to vote for Donald Trump this November. It has greatly concerned me, as Trump is the only one who will stand for our Christian values. I'm not sure what to do. I think I will just not vote, as I cannot in good conscience either support a Democrat or go against my husband's wishes. Now, this is an interesting statement in and of itself, especially the whole my husband has commanded me to vote thus and so, which is not
Yeah,
nearly as weird as it sounds when you realize the whole authoritarian hierarchical structure of the family in fundamentalist evangelical Christianity.
household.
But this is where it gets fun.
Because Laurie Alexander,
Lori's response. Yeah. Lori's response is this: I would encourage you not to vote at all. since you don't want to cancel out his vote. After all, God made him head over you, and wives canceling out their husbands' votes is not a good thing.
I
How
mean,
dare you think that you might have a voice at all, even a little bit,
yeah.
even when your husband permits it? No, 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 none of that. There will be none of that.
I mean, pretty much what she would then encourage: either don't vote if you can't do so in good conscience, or if you can vote, then hey, just hand over your vote to him. Don't even bother going to vote. Just say, yeah, my husband gets to vote for me. Obviously, that's unconstitutional, but she would be in favor of that.
Yeah, yeah, no. Well, remember, women aren't real people.
Yeah,
We're only like 3/5 people.
if that.
Yeah, that was a reference to the 3/5 compromise. Yeah, that was a racial thing. It's still stupid. It's all stupid. It's stupid to devalue people.
Yeah,
Ugh, all this stupid. The stupid hurts, Renee. It hurts.
yeah.
I feel
I
like I need to go have a bath.
I mean, I I I think this is definitely incredibly stupid, but it gets me angry as a person who stands up for women, and as a person who wants to support women, and as a person who hates misogyny, and I have to fight against a woman who is advocating against herself and against women in my life who I care about.
Well, thank you for your support. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say I don't know whether I can legitimately say I have the permission or authority to do this. I don't give a fuck. Say anything you want to the transformed wife. Smack her down because that bitch is basically trying to destroy all of our lives and freedom,
Yeah,
which is just fucking delightful.
I mean, if I was a Christian, or if I did believe in God, then I wouldn't hold it as an unreasonable hypothesis that God has appointed her to be a representative on Earth to bring us back to the Dark Ages because the Enlightenment has discredited him.
God really, really sucks. Their God certainly does. My gosh. Well, on that note, I think we're going to leave it there. I encourage all of you not to do too much heavy drinking. That could be troublesome.
Yeah.
But yes, please. If you want to support the show, please like, comment, subscribe. Any interaction is great. I've just started my Patreon. I'm going to link it down below, and any money's going through that will go to equipment to actually maybe get our faces on and have proper video interactions, which I think would be great and just improve the quality of the show in that regard. Um, Also, reach out to us on Twitter at Veritas Voices, Renee at Renevelation, and myself. I keep forgetting my new Twitter handle. I want to tell people to go to Lilith Liberated. And I'm like, no, go to Phoenix_Lilith on Twitter, at Phoenix_Lilith.
And all
I
the links will be included below. So,
Absolutely. And anyway, thank you for joining us today. I don't know if this is a treat or not, but thanks to an excellent backlog of religious insanity, we will be doing another Batshit Believers episode next week. So
well,
if you have anything you want to see on that one, let us know. That would be great. Um, in any event, we will talk to you all again very soon. Thanks for joining us today, and reason bless.